Omid Scobie's Buckingham Palace book Royal Spin lands at Universal TV for series development with writer Emily Fox deadlines. Exclusive. Good news for TV viewers who can't seem to get enough of the British royal family. Following the end of The Crown, another high-profile drama series set in that word is coming together. It hails from Omid Scobie, co-author of Finding Freedom, Harry and Meghan and the Making of a Modern Royal Family, and author of Endgame, two of the most talked about books on the royals in the past few years. Following a major bidding war, Universal Television has acquired the rights to Scobie and Robin Benway's upcoming book Royal Spin for series development. I hear 9 studios pursued the title, resulting in 7-figure offers. Marking Scobie's fiction debut, Royal Spin is a fish-out-of-water workplace drama which follows an American press agent who leaves behind her high-octane career in D.C. for a communications job at Buckingham Palace. Scobie, a journalist, author, and broadcaster who has covered the British royal family since 2011, conceived the story. He is developing and co-creating the series with TV writer, producer, showrunner Emily Fox, the watchful eye Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, who will write the pilot script and serve as showrunner. Fox, Scobie, and Benway all executive produce. In Royal Spin, with the British monarchy reeling from a wave of scandals, young American politico Lauren O'Connell is plucked from the White House to breathe new life into the Buckingham Palace communications team and help end the royal family's streak of bad press. But in an institution steeped in tradition and strict protocol, change isn't easy or welcome. It turns out the royal household can be just as messy and confusing as Capitol Hill. Faced with never-ending culture clashes, displeased royal aides with intimidating titles, and risky new love interests, this fish out of water is determined to prove she's got what it takes and might even find herself in the process. Offering a fresh take that beautifully blends wit and romance, Royal Spin is a deeply entertaining exploration of the world's enduring fascination with the royal family, said Vivian Cannon, Universal TV's EVP Drama Development. We're delighted to have landed the rights to this fascinating story and thrilled to be collaborating with Emily, Omid, and Robin to bring it to life for TV audiences. Royal Spin, co-written by Scobie and Benway, marks the first collaboration between the two. It was unveiled at the London Book Fair in March and hit the U.S. TV marketplace at around that time, getting interest from a slew of buyers. We're so excited to be partnering with Universal Television on the adaptation of Royal Spin, said Fox, Scobie, and Benway in a joint statement. No show or book has ever gone inside the frenzied world of the Buckingham Palace press office, and we can't wait to throw Lauren, our young American protagonist fresh from the White House communications team, into the deep end of it. The fish-out-water premise, culture clashes, and romance of Royal Spin have a little bit of Emily of Paris feel to it. The story also draws parallels to Duchess Meghan's experience as an American woman being thrust into the world of the British royal family. Fox's writing and producing credits include Freeform's The Watchful Eye, VH1's Hindsight, Bravo's Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, NBC's Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, Netflix Daybreak and Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, and the Warner Bros. Film New York Minute. She is repped by UTA, Amplified, and Felker, Tochek, Suttleson, McGinnis, and Ryan. In addition to his books on the royal family, Scobie is a longtime contributor for ABC News and Good Morning America, and a Harper's Bazaar editor-at-large. He's repped by UTA and Hanson, Jacobson-Teller, Hoberman, Newman, Warren, Richmond, Rush, Caller, Gelman, Meigs, and Fox. Benway is the best-selling author of 9 books for young adults, including Far from the Tree and the upcoming The Girls of Skylark Lane, which have been published in more than 25 countries. She is repped by UTA. Is the palace still briefing against Meghan and Harry when they want to distract from stories like that? Or is it just commenters making up their own things? Omid response: listen, for years the palace was hugely involved in briefing stories about Harry and Meghan. There is proof to support that. I have proof Harry and Meghan have spoken about it. At this point, it is fact upon fact upon fact. I think if you look at it today, things are a little different. I don't see much evidence of wheeling out stories about Harry and Meghan specifically from Kensington Palace since they changed their complete communications team. It seems that there is perhaps some hope that they can move away from that kind of approach. We still see stories that come out that clearly came from the palace, the Sunday Times as a prime example. It'll be stories about the Sussexes. Are they going or not going to Sandringham at Christmas? Have they been invited to this? Are they going to acknowledge Charles' birthday? This or that or the other. So much of this comes from a royal correspondent picking up the phone and chit-chatting with a communications aide, and whatever comes from that conversation ends up becoming the story. The reality is that the papers know that Harry and Meghan are the more clickable, interesting story, whether people like them or not. I think a lot of people do it out of hate. I think there are a couple that receive a lot of hate clicks, but they still receive more attention and engagement than anyone else. That in itself is a problem for the institution of the monarchy, because if their main players aren't the ones getting the attention on the front pages, then where do you go from there? Omid mentioned in People magazine that Harry and William don't look like they're about to reconcile. Is there any hope for Meghan and the royal family? Is it just a case where, as long as Harry and William are not on good terms, it's not going to get better for Meghan or anybody else? Omid replied, everything that I'd looked into and reported on for the book about Harry and William all pointed to this reconciliation being highly unlikely and certainly not on the horizon. Even if that was to happen, I don't think it changes Meghan's position. We've seen her in the last year really establish herself as an independent individual that is not riding on the coattails of her royal past or really even interested in being involved in that world. I know her team spoke about how she wasn't coming over for the coronation because of Archie's birthday, but I also know from speaking with people that there was also a desire to stay away from the noise and hysteria that comes anytime she sets foot near the country, let alone the family. And the way they were treated during the time of the Queen's death and the funeral really reinforced for her that she had not only made the right decision, but didn't want to go anywhere near it again. They said it loud and clear that they were looking for conversations and accountability and for people to own their roles in everything that had happened, and no one has, so there is no reason for anything to change moving forward. One could argue the balls are all in the royal family's court, and we know that they're not hitting them back anytime soon. When Omid was asked about the chapter on Kate and reports in U.S. outlets about how she is trying to modernize her image now, can you tell us anything more that you've heard about that? Omid replied, I think Kate's in a really interesting position because in many ways she's the last main attraction in terms of the guaranteed crowd puller, the guaranteed front page, the attraction within the royal family when it comes to all the glamour and mystique and mystery that comes with the firm. She does a good job of maintaining that too. We still know very little about her. We don't really know her thoughts or feelings on much beyond the early years, but I think that we have seen an evolution in Kate. I remember when Meghan was still a working member of the royal family, I was writing Finding Freedom, and I was talking with a senior aide at Kensington Palace that worked with all four at the time, and they described Meghan's arrival doing all of these big projects and going from one thing to the next and wanting more. That was always her attitude. They described it as, and they never finished their sentence, but it was a bit of a rocket up for Kate. We've seen that continue to evolve over time, and I don't think it's about Meghan in that situation. We're all in competition with the people around us, whether we consciously accept it or it's all subconscious. With Kate, we've seen these small changes in her character and her approach to work, but also just in her demeanor, her confidence, even her appearance. I'm no style expert, particularly with royal style, but we have seen a change even in her working wardrobe. We have seen an evolution in her on all fronts, but I also feel that there's a huge amount of pressure on her moving forward, being kind of the last shiny thing in the royal family. That's a huge amount of pressure for someone who has, so far, carried out much less engagements than any other member of the royal family, who, although we don't ever say it, is technically a part-time working royal. She's only human, so are the expectations too high for her? It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out over the years ahead as the children get older and William and Kate take footsteps closer towards their time as king and queen. Omid was also asked about the way Kate has been portrayed in the media, is that you see stories about her being a peacemaker in private, trying to help things between Harry and William. But then there are other stories about how she doesn't see herself being close to Harry again. She's so quiet in public, but somebody's sharing these different messages to the press. Why is she being presented this way? His response: I have questioned where Kate the Peacekeeper stories come from, because I've certainly not had anyone tell me anything of the sort. From my observations and the conversations I've had with people, Kate likes to stay out of that stuff, and we've certainly not seen any efforts from her made to smooth things over with any issues with herself and Meghan, or with Harry, or any kind of encouragement between the two brothers to talk. I don't know where the Peacekeeper stuff comes from. I sometimes think that it's just lazy journalism, that of course this sweet and innocent wife would just want to get the men together to smooth things over because perhaps in a movie or a TV show that's how it would be portrayed. I sometimes think that we know so little about Kate and the people around her are so guarded that I think the press often puts on to her what we expect from her or what we think she would do in those situations, which in many ways is smart, because that's how it was like with the Queen. We knew so little about her. We knew the Queen's opinion on very little beyond horse racing. That was largely down to her being an extremely private person, but also the people around her respecting her privacy and receiving that palace protection at all times. I think Kate has that too, and she's very fortunate compared to a lot of the other royal women who came in and were completely left to fend for themselves. I often find that a lot of the coverage about Kate is either wishful thinking or more insinuating than anything. I also find some of the coverage on her a bit disrespectful at times. Just any kind of infantilization of her, the kind of like, wow, doesn't she sit well? And wow, she twirled her hair. It's always very breathless, and I think, well, she's a grown woman. She's got a lot more to say and do and prove beyond that. But the comfort zone with the press seems to be how well she can flip a pancake. Omid was asked if it's part of this tabloid wishful thinking, but we know in the book you talked about Kate and William's marriage being very solid, but we've seen more reports about there being trouble between them. Maybe that's just trying to make something to get clicks, but I'm just wondering, why is that stuff coming out now? His response: I think partly rumors take on a life of their own online, and so there will be a bigger hunger for things that aren't even true about someone. I think William and Kate have largely been protected from that with the British tabloids, who often do lean on these very lazy rumor spreading and whatnot. But with Kate and William, particularly with their great relationships with a lot of the important newspaper editors and publishers, they managed to be kept out of that. But of course, there is no control over things in the U.S., and we have seen them become fodder for a lot of the supermarket tabloids for stories about their marriage being in trouble and all the rest of it. I'm not here to comment on someone's marriage. I can only go by what I have heard from people that are much closer to the situation that I'd imagined a source for In Touch magazine is. I've not heard anything about a marriage being in trouble. I'm always very careful with that stuff as well. Just as much as I will disregard that story, I'll also disregard the stories of Harry and Meghan's marriage being in trouble. I think it's very lazy tabloid journalism at times because you can't make money off people just being happy all the time. You need them to be in crisis for their lives to be more interesting, and I think sometimes two people can just be in a very safe and perhaps slightly dull marriage, and that's okay. It's been said Endgame is such an intriguing portrait of a very complicated, very historic system. Are you a little afraid of how British tabloids are going to respond to your book and cherry-pick different quotes from it? Omid replied, I know that will happen. I mean, it's inevitable, and I hope that there are readers out there who feel far more comfortable with reading something for themselves than being dictated what to think of something by an angry journalist at the Daily Mail who has a completely different agenda. I'm okay with it at this point. I can't change the British media, and I have seen and read enough bad negative headlines about myself to develop the thick enough skin, I think. Being a target to hateful comments, it has been tough at times. I don't like it when it affects my family, but it's a job. I've got to finish doing it. I'm here now. I'm not preparing to leave or bow out until I finish my work. I'm not going to let anyone make that decision for me.